Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Haiku Talk. I am your host, Ben Ga, your friendly neighborhood haiku poet. And today we're going to take a look at a haiku from the latest issue of The Heron's Nest from Meredith Ackroyd with the first line of The Way. With that said, it's time to sit back, grab yourself a tasty beverage, and let's haiku. All right, thank you for tuning in. Welcome back. We have this latest issue of The Heron's Nest upon us. It's the December 2022 issue, and it is a number of wonderful haiku and senryu. And this one by Meredith Ackroyd just caught my attention. And when I said the first line of The Way, it does make me think of course, the TV show The Mandalorian, where we talk about the way. And that does come into play, not Star Wars specifically, but it does come to play in the way that this haiku works. So let's take a look at this, shall we? The poem goes like this. The way we shape each other, bonsai tree. The way we shape each other, bonsai tree. Very nice piece. And it is sort of the symbiotic relationship between the human and the bonsai tree by practicing a tradition of trimming, to trim this little bonsai tree, taking care of the bonsai tree to make sure it fits a certain beautiful aesthetic, which does have deep roots in Japan, pun intended. And it is something that the tree, that relationship of you working with the tree, and then also the tree kind of working with you to kind of find that balance, is a really cool thing. I think oftentimes anything that we have a big passion for, be it, in this case, with a living thing, it's a bonsai tree, but any sort of creative effort, writing poetry, writing haiku senryu, playing guitar, playing a sport, playing, anything that you're engaged with on a very intimate level like that, you become to you have a kind of symbiotic relationship with this thing that you're engaged with. And as much as you shape, in this case, the bonsai tree, we get something back from that as well. And we're informed by the thing that we are working with. I know for me, writing haiku and senryu and having a complete focus on this in my life for the last 12 years has been very informative. And not only has it given me a creative output and a focus, but it has also given me something in return as to kind of how to see life, how to engage with life in a moment-by-moment basis, of trying to be more present, of trying to honor and respect the suchness of things around me. And I get back as much from haiku and senryu as I put into it. And it's a very cool thing. And so when that first line of the way, there's often talk of kind of religious practices, philosophical life paths that you can take that are kind of dubbed the way. Very much like in the TV show, The Mandalorian, the Mandalorians have a specific code that they practice called the way. This is not the way, or this is the way. And even though in the context of this poem, that first line, the way, is actually part of the it's part of the phrase. We have a fragment and phrase poem here where the phrase comes first, which is really the way we shape each other. And then the fragment is bonsai tree. That first line, when you just read it by itself, does carry a lot of weight with it. So let's kind of break this down line by line a little bit. So the first line is the way. The way. And anybody that is a Star Wars fan these days or is very familiar with different spiritual practices might stop at that first line, those two words of the way, and have a very deep understanding of something spiritual, mystical, of the way of living one's life, defined and defined by a set of rituals and practices and methodologies and so forth. We find, though, that it's more than just that when we get to line 2, but at the same time, as you finish the poem, that first line becomes it does become meaningful, and it is kind of reinforced if you read it as sort of like the way one lives a life, which is pretty cool. But it's also part of the phrase of the poem. And so when we get to line 2, we shape each other. We shape each other. We now have the complete phrase of the poem, the way we shape each other, which is pretty cool. Because now we don't know exactly the full context, but the way, and then the way we shape each other is already prescribing a relationship. And at this point, we don't know what that relationship is in relation to, but it certainly starts to get you thinking about relationships that you have in life. For me, when I first started reading this, I was thinking the way we shape each other. I was thinking about, how, romantic relationships are, how parent-child relationships are, how friend relationships are, how I wasn't specifically going to what we find in the third line, but I was thinking about the interconnective tissue we have with other living humans, or even the way my cat and I, sort of shape each other, the way we coexist in my place here. And so I'm already thinking about all of these sort of relationships where myself and an other, do have this relationship where we do actually interact and help each other grow and change and have an influence on the way we live our lives. So then when you get to that third line of bonsai tree, which is the fragment at the end, which pulls together the context for the moment specifically here, so it's not just wide open and free. We now know what that direct relationship is of the person that actually is trimming the tree, the bonsai tree, and then the actual tree growing in amidst that trimming, that pruning. And that's really cool. And it's a really cool practice that I haven't done myself, but most people know what a bonsai tree is, which is an interesting thing, because it's a small tree, it's a small practice, but it's somehow known, throughout the world. Kind of like haiku, it's something that people are familiar with, even if they don't know all the details about. And in this sense, I generally would recommend people when they're writing haiku or senryu that they don't try to necessarily incorporate Japanese culture into their poems, if in a way to kind of emulate the fact that this poem, this form of poetry came from Japan, and would suggest trying to write with the cultural traditions that you are in, but use the form of haiku and senryu to express those things. But in this case, especially as we're coming up on the Christmas holiday season, and we see gifts given all the time for all sorts of different things, and you'll see little bonsai tree gift sets that are given to people who have no idea what kind of cultural heritage comes with that set. And so it doesn't rub me the wrong way to see a a bonsai tree being used in a haiku here, especially in this way. So it was very well done, and it does then have layers of meaning wrapped up in it, with the cultural traditions of bonsai trees, which do look that up if you're interested in that, but also just that symbiotic relationship we have between living things and how we shape one another. And I've just really fascinated by this poem, and I'm left, thinking about it a lot and reflecting on my own life a lot. And that's a really cool thing. So in that regard, the way this poem and I are shaping each other, there's a vibration happening here, and I'm hopefully when you're encountering it here, you might have that same sort of vibration connection to the poem as well, and thinking about all the things in your life of the way we shape each other. Put that into the context of wherever that fits in your life, and it's something. It's good things to chew on. So thank you, Meredith Ackroyd. Thank you, The Heron's Nest, for another fantastic issue. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Haiku Talk. With that, I bid you adieu. Have a great night. See you next time.